1 month after I thought I had secured my teaching job again, I got an email that changed everything. The following story is titled, Mr. Reynolds. Mr. Reynolds stood in the center of the U-shaped arrangement of desks in his classroom. The desks had been pushed together to create a makeshift stage so his high school juniors could act out and recite portions of The Great Gatsby. Weeks later, the classroom still held that same sense of performance. In a windowless room, the Edison lights that were somewhat frowned upon by the administration he'd hung for his students created a calming, warm environment. Warmer than the overhead fluorescent lights the school preferred. A few students stared at their iPads, others chatted quietly with their friends. He let the moment be what it was, listening to his students talk about their summer plans. To anyone watching, it was simply the last day of school. 3 weeks earlier, the email had arrived without warning. No preface, no conversation, just a subject line about the end-of-year wrap-up and the next school year. He read it once, then again, slower. Due to licensing requirements, I will be interviewing people for your job. For 7 years, he had been teaching juniors narrative essays, literature, and the slow work of helping them say something clearly. 7 years since he returned to complete his education and change careers for something that felt like it mattered. He had done what they asked, changed his degree path, adjusted his plans, and stayed compliant. He was mid-semester. Only 4 classes remained for full licensure. At home, student work and lesson plans, coupled with his own coursework for his degree, covered the kitchen table most nights. He filled the margins of student essays with comments. Capitalize your sentences. Proper nouns are capitalized. What do you mean by this sentence? His young adult child moved quietly around him, used to the rhythm. This job had become a balancing act between his studies, the lesson planning, the grading, the emotional support, and the provider of food for many of his students. Yet the joy he received when a student finally got it or said thank you made it all worth it and reminded him why he was teaching. At school, nothing changed. He showed up every day, unlocked the door, and wrote the date and quote of the day on the board, laughed and joked with his students, and hid the pain behind his smile. Students asked if they could turn in work late. A few asked if he would be back next year. He shrugged and with a slight smile said, "I'd like to." Near the end of the second week, a student lingered after the bell. He asked what he could do to bring up his grade. "Mr. Reynolds, I want to play football. Is there anything I can do to bring up my grade?" He nodded and told him there were 3 remaining assignments he hadn't submitted that he would allow him to make up, but that he had to do it quickly because the end of the year is here and he'd have to submit final grades by midweek. Later that day, an email arrived from the student. "Hello, Mr. Reynolds. I finished all the assignments. I want to thank you for giving me this chance. I really do appreciate and thank you for being my teacher. You were one of my favorite teachers this year. Thank you, Mr. Reynolds." He just stared at the message. Losing this job is a hard blow. The last day arrived quickly and without ceremony. His juniors left quickly, already halfway into next year in their minds. There were no announcements, no pause to mark the end of 7 years, just the echo of lockers closing and the distant voices of his students as they walked further away from his room. He just stood there. The hubbub of teachers laughing and talking about their summer plans and return next year. Packing up his things, he didn't have much time alone before workers came into his room to start removing desks in preparation for tearing up the floor. His room, it turned out, was one of a few slated for remodel over the summer. With a slight sting in his chest, He chuckled to himself. Well, I guess it'll be nice and new for the new teacher. Picking up his backpack, he turned slightly to glance at the student desks that were now in the hallway one last time. A year later, his boxes of teacher supplies were still not fully unpacked and neatly stacked in his garage. He had applied to schools, to offices, to anything that might hold. Interviews came and went. Most did not. The language was different, but the outcome was the same. We've decided to move forward with other candidates. We're sorry for the unfortunate news. We will keep your resume on file for the next 6 months. We wish you good luck in your search. Every morning, he sat at the same kitchen table, papers replaced by bills, forms, applications, and half-finished plans. The routine was gone, his sense of direction with it. Sometimes he thought about the classroom. Sometimes he felt irritated by what the administration made him do, with the results still ending up the same. A job lost, a degree he didn't sign up for, and a lost sense of direction and what came next. And that's where things stand now.